So it might seem a little bit weird that we refer to these items as weapons. FPS weapons aren't always used to kill people. We just call them that internally as they go through the same pipeline, but there are so many other things that you can do with them. Say you might want to take down a target without actually killing them and restraining them instead and taking them in. Or you might want some form of gadget that picks things up, or you might want another that disables electricals, or you might want another that cuts, another that salvages, another that repairs. So there are many, many things that you can do with FPS weapons. So I've personally wanted to work on these non-lethal FPS weapons and tools for a long time. I've personally written a lot of the design documentation that goes alongside them for like a long time ago, so I've been dying for these things to come out, and I've seen a couple of them going through the concept phases, and I'm sat there itching, waiting for it to come in, and I'm looking at the roadmap myself. But ultimately, there's not much point in us putting these things out without the underlying systems being there. Now, all that said, teams have now started work on systems like medical, charge and drain, breaching, salvage. So now is a perfect time to start developing these weapons and tools to go alongside the systems. A change to the player health system is that over time, you may start to suffer long-lasting injuries if you've been seriously injured multiple times. And what the multi-tool healing tool allows you to do is not only heal someone just by firing at them over a short distance and applying healing gel, you will also get a UI readout that does notify you of any long-lasting injuries that might not be obvious that your target has sustained, and you can advise them or use multiple healing or drug pens to top them back up again.
You know, it's a modular piece, so how do you look at it and instantly recognize it as, okay, this is a medical attachment? So obviously you've got the essentially what looks like a sort of syringe, and then also you've got there's a canister on this that swaps out, and that also holds the sort of healing serum. So those are the two things that swap out on this.
So the multi-tool salvage attachment also has two functions. It has salvage and repair. Salvaging allows you to do what we call hull stripping, which is where you can walk up to a ship or vehicle and you can start stripping away the hull that then gets stored in a canister. And that could either be sold on or kept for repair. And what repair is essentially the reverse. If you look at your ship that's been damaged, you can apply what is in the canister, the material that you've gathered in the canister, to any damage that's been done to your ship or vehicle to repair it.
And the obvious visual thing with this is Nick delivered it in yellow originally, but we've pushed him to more the silvery blue. If you find one or you're in a shop, you're like, okay, that's what I need. Pick. There's no confusion.
So we are also working on the dedicated medical gun, and it essentially gives you all of the information that the multi-tool version provides. It does give you additional functionality like being able to apply specific drugs if you want to. Now that you've got the readout that lets you know what's wrong with someone, you'll be able to look at what you've got in there. You can kind of move the sliders around and apply them at different levels and different amounts of drugs and medicine to mask those issues, which is really going to contribute towards pushing that medical role in the PU.
It was the first one that we've done like this. Overall, like, I mean, I actually really like how this instrument turned out. It reads well, it feels high tech. We've got some really good color options as well, so yeah, pretty cool. So the GREYCAT tractor beam, this was a real fun one.
It's much bigger than the multi-tool. It only does one thing.
So we had a lot of iterations, but where we ended up was really cool, and it was also gave us a really good chance of advancing the style of GREYCAT. So it's sort of an updated chassis. It's really pushing on those tool vibes, and it also, you know, it also fits nicely onto the back of the player.
So it's graded for lifting much heavier objects. It's got a much bigger battery, so you'll be able to use it for longer. And we're exploring other options like it being able to push pull faster and being able to grapple from a further distance away and grapple you faster as well. So another thing we've been developing is the standalone cutting tool, which is the bigger, badder, better version of the multi-tool cutter.
Right away you can see that family DNA that's shared between the two. So this one kind of feels a slightly older generation.
It'll be able to cut through materials quicker, it'll be able to cut through denser material, and it will be able to essentially do it all faster with a bigger battery capacity, so you can keep going for longer.
It's a mix of precision tech, you know, because a lot of the stuff that these tools do is quite technical.
So when you're cutting out those big shapes on panels and everything, it'll be the tool that you want to use instead of the mini multi-tool itself. So the breaching charge is one of the first examples we've got of an FPS deployable.
So with this one, it remains quite small, but benefit is you can stick it onto a surface.
So you'll be able to take this out, put it down, it'll deploy on the surface, and the breaching charge is purely meant to bust through doors.
And it's pulling on some of the bearing styling that we did for things like the grenade and some of the more recent weapons, maybe like the LMG, so we're getting more of that polymer. Yeah, it's just always sort of maintaining that balance of polymer versus metal versus how many bolts. Again, keep that family DNA.
So something that doesn't necessarily link in, but I am very excited to talk about, is the ULTIFLEX CROSSBOW.
The ULTIFLEX CROSSBOW probably is one of my favourite weapons in a long time, actually.
It's very different to any weapon that we've ever done before.
And also it's essentially a new company.
It's going to be our best stealth weapon available. So while the radar and scanning systems pick up on IR, EM, and audio as well, this thing will essentially fly under the radar and all of those. So it's your weapon that you will be using if you want to stay stealthy. And it just looks so cool.
This design, yeah, I really love it, and the fact that Nick has been able to figure out how to get all the functionality that's required by design, the key beads, the reloading, it's a cartridge, the arrow has to expand once it's loaded, it has to compress to a certain size in terms of the overall length of the weapon. It's got to look badass, and I would say, call me crazy, I think we've nailed it on this. I think the art team did a really awesome job of building it as well.
So those are just a few of the FPS weapons and tools that we've been working on. We are so excited to be working on them now and developing these systems. So I'm sure you'll hear more about how these systems work in the future, and we can't wait to get them in your hands and have you playing with them.
As Star Citizen's development pushes into exciting new gameplay aspects like medical, breaching, salvage, shooting people with crossbows, it's exciting to see the weapons content team get to stretch their proverbial legs like this. But up next, asteroids. Friendly space potato or a rocky, dangerous adversary? The Planet content team has created a new pipeline for better looking and more varied asteroids, and they're coming your way in the upcoming Alpha 313.
Rugs are boring, but you still need them for the big picture, and if they don't look good, then the big picture will suffer from it. I do have a knack for finding solutions to problems, not necessarily only the ones that are very difficult to find, but also for things that are just like inconvenient. The main reason why we needed new asteroids was that the old ones were using and relying on old tech. Based on that, we wanted to update the process and the assets. As the Star Citizen universe keeps on expanding, there is a need for more variety for asteroids, and that's why we built that new pipeline to allow us to iterate and create more variation much more quickly than before, and with a better quality as well. For that new asteroid workflow, we've moved it all into Houdini, so we generate the high poly version of the asteroid in Houdini, which then gets broken down into a lower resolution version, which gets its unwrap, so you can actually map a texture to it. Then we generate the masks in Houdini as well for our shader in the engine. And then we bake all the information from the high poly onto the low poly, export it out to the engine, and then we set it up there with the shader in the engine, with the tiling textures and the colors and all that stuff. With the new process, the final resulting asteroids are more consistent within the set of asteroids. So you get like a more consistent texel density and detail. It also uses the new organic shader, which has displacement and tessellation. compared to POM, and just the overall quality of the visuals will be improved. We are building a space game after all, so I think asteroids are a vital part of that. Getting that experience that you always had when you watched those Star Wars movies as a kid, where they were hiding behind an asteroid and then someone came by and then you could ambush them and then play hide and seek around the asteroids. And with the new asteroids there are a lot more nooks and crannies, if you will, where the player can hide. Those are the asteroids that are coming to the Lagrange points in 3.13, and they might seem like a small thing, but this is Star Citizen and the details matter.
So what did we learn this week? Well, we learned that new non-lethal FPS weapons with med beams, tractor beams, cutting beams, and salvage beams are the harbingers of new gameplay opportunities in Star Citizen's future. That the ULTIFLEX crossbow is Star Citizen's new silent killer. Take that, elevators. That I don't care what it's supposed to be used for, I'm going to use that cutting beam in one-on-one combat because it just looks too darn cool. And that asteroids may seem like a small, tiny thing, but it's the sum total of those small, tiny things that make up for a truly immersive experience that we're all working towards. For Inside Star Citizen, I'm Jared Huckabee. We'll see you all next week.